Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, we are back with another episode of The Blunt Truth with Braylon Crest. Of course, I need no introduction. I am Braylon Crest, like it says in the title of the channel. But, yeah, we're back after our hiatus, and today, we will be discussing and theorizing the possibilities and the potential that JD Vance has if he is elected president of the United States, and how we can break the terrible, trashy, disgusting MAGA cycle that Donald Trump has built and that Donald Trump has kind of almost ruined, in a sense, for the Republican Party. We're going to talk about how JD Vance has the potential of breaking away from his running mate and possibly even rebuilding the whole Republican Party as a whole. Now, a lot of people might say this sounds, delusional, and maybe that I'm deluded and stuff like that, but I actually think that, these are things that can happen. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, now let's get into who JD Vance is. JD Vance is the current Vice President of the United States under the Donald Trump administration, which will be going from, of course, 2025. Well, now it's to present, but it will be till 2029. JD Vance was born. JD Vance was born August 2nd, 1984, and he was born to a kind of unconventional family. He was born to Beverly Carol Akins. She struggled with addiction most of JD Vance's life. There had been several instances of this. He also was born to an older sister, and he was also born to an older sister, and of course his mama. He released a book called Hillbilly Elegy describing this. But J.D. Vance was born in kind of a bad household. His mother was a drug addict who, no shade to her and no shade to J.D., but she was definitely not all there. She was a doctor, or a nurse. Well, she was in the medical field, but, she suffered from very bad addiction to the point where she had JD give his pee samples to try to cover up when taking drug tests, to cover up from the hospital, to not give them any more suspicion that she is a drug addict, so she can of course keep her job, because if you're going to work in the medical field, can't be a druggie. She had abused him very badly. JD Vance lived a very traumatic life. He had, described that a point in time where he had to, jump out of a car that his mother was driving when she was very high and on a manic episode. JD was, just not the very conventional type family, and I mean, it's surely not a family I would want to grow up in and live in either. It was, very traumatic for him, and his mom had several boyfriends over his entire life course, and husbands, and she had this problem where, she couldn't really keep up. She would marry random people that she didn't actually like, and stuff like that, and it would just happen over and over again. JD's mom was a very... obviously no knock to her. She's doing great now, and I'm very proud of it. But, J.D. Vance's mom was not the best around. But J.D. Vance was lucky enough that his grandma, which he called his mama, was around. She took J.D. Vance's life very, very, very seriously, and wanted the best for him. JD's grades were slipping when he was living with his mom. He couldn't afford things that other students could afford. So his mama one day came and took JD. And JD ended up living with her for a very long portion of his life, where she taught him life skills life lessons, stuff like that, teaching him to be the great man that he is. So now we skip forward. JD Vance makes it to Yale, but only by paying. JD Vance has to work 2 jobs as he pays to go to Yale while he goes. And he has to try to dig in his pocket, dig in his wallet for enough money just to go there by working 2 jobs. JD Vance had actually been told to leave so many times, and it had almost left the college, but he never gave up. JD eventually got through, eventually finishing his full 4 years at Yale, getting his degree, and doing great. Now we skip to 2017. JD Vance, who is not very known at this point in time, releases a book called Hillbilly Elegy. It is about his life and things that he has had to live through. It gets some backlash for being stereotypical, but it's really his fucking life, so how are we going to give backlash to it? I don't even fucking get it. But it was a very good book. It was about his life, shit like that, but that's not important. Politically, where he stood is important. JD Vance was a never-Trumper. Actually, he went on several interviews saying, "I'm a never-Trump guy," and had given reasons on why he believed that the MAGA movement was so strong at this point. But JD Vance was not a Trump supporter, which is a far cry from what he is now. JD Vance was very against Donald Trump and actually had a lot of grievances for the President of the United States and was very disappointed when he was elected in 2016 over Hillary Clinton. Although JD Vance, I believe at that point, was a libertarian. He never completely said what he was, and he never identified himself. I don't believe he said he was a Democrat, but I also don't believe he said he was a Republican. Believing the, kind of libertarian belief that we should just stick with. JD Vance, did very well, and actually his book, Hillbilly Elegy, got a movie released in 2020. The movie was great. It did great in the box office. It's on Netflix. And it picks up everybody. The movie was very good. It's a very sad movie. I watched it. It's fucking gut-wrenching. It's about his book. It's very, JD lived a hard life. He really did. But that, just real quick, I want to make sure that we're, kind of clear on that. That is not, a reason. That's not a reason to defend somebody's politics, but I think that, politically he's very right too. But keep in mind, he was a never-Trump guy. I want you to keep that in mind for the rest of the video, for the things that I say and the things that I theorize, because he was a never-Trumper. Okay. Now, JD Vance runs for Senate in 2022. JD Vance runs for Senate. Now, this is where it gets a little crazy. Excuse me. Anyway, but JD Vance runs for Senate, and he wins in 2022, but he got the endorsement from Donald Trump. See, this was after Donald Trump had lost the 2020 election and was no longer president of the United States, but this was also the same year he ended up announcing that he was going to run for president again and, stuff like that. But JD Vance had run for Senate. Now, JD Vance was, like I said in the past, a never-Trump guy. So it was kind of weird. You're probably wondering, how did he get the endorsement from Donald Trump if he was a never-Trumper? And also, how did he end up being the vice president of Donald Trump? We'll get to that. But JD Vance had just in recent times just started kind of, and I don't want to sound bad, just kind of started glazing Trump to a point that most people wouldn't, to a point where most people were coming around to Donald Trump again. JD Vance was. JD Vance was kind of glazing Trump for what I believe was to win the was to win the Senate seat. He really wanted it, and he did eventually win it with the endorsement from Donald Trump. Actually, I believe that Donald Trump's endorsement was likely the 90% reason why he won. Because, listen, people didn't really know who JD Vance was outside of Hillbilly Elegy. Getting an endorsement from a former president of the United States is a very big honor. But, I mean, it came at a cost because he was never really a Trump guy. But at this point, I believe it was just to win because he did eventually win. I mean, come on. Now, we get through that. JD Vance does amazing in Senate. And actually, he's only in Senate for 2 years. But he does great in Senate for the 2 years that he's in. And, no complaints from me. I think JD Vance did very well. And actually, if we skip past a little bit, JD Vance started becoming friends with some people inside the conservative movement, like political commentator and founder of Turning Point USA, the now deceased Charlie Kirk. Charlie and JD had become very great friends, and JD Vance was becoming friends with a lot of people from the conservative movement. JD Vance was building his name as this Republican, as this MAGA, when JD Vance was originally a Never Trump guy. So, it was kind of crazy, but look at Trump's covenant now. It's full of Never Trump guys. But, it was weird, and it was cool to see. We had never seen this before, and, JD Vance was coming up. JD Vance was becoming friends with all these people, and he was, kind of building up himself. See, that's what I believe it's about for JD Vance. I believe it's about self-image. I think it's about self-build, self-continuation. More than just, at building relationships. I think it's more of getting these positions. But JD Vance starts becoming friends with people in this movement. Right, with, doing interviews with Charlie Kirk and, a lot of other people. I'm not gonna name them all, obviously, but we skip past. JD Vance continues in Senate. Now we get to 2024. Donald Trump is running in primaries, and he's running for president, but in the primaries he's running again, and he's going against Nikki Haley to get the Republican ticket for the 2024 presidential election. Donald Trump wins the Republican ticket, meaning that he is the representative for the Republican Party, which means is the Republican candidate going against Joe Biden at this point, meaning that it would be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump once again, just like it was in 2020, although as you will see, that vastly changed. Donald Trump starts, of course, looking for his running mate because, typically you need a running mate when you plan to be president. So he's looking for his running mate. He's checking suggestions. I think the craziest one that I've heard, or that I had heard when he was running was, Tucker Carlson is going to be his vice president. And look at Tucker now. Tucker is right in the same boat as me. He would be 100% criticizing the president of the United States, which I don't think would be a good image on Donald Trump. Also, he says that Trump spreads propaganda now, which, is also not a good look on the president of the United States. Now, Donald Trump is, of course, looking for a running mate, but let's get to a point real quick. Donald Trump gets shot in the ear. Donald Trump is at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. He speaks. He's saying, "Look at that shit! Look what they've done to our country. It's very disgusting, right?" And then I just hear, pow! And then bam, right to the ear. If he turned his head, he'd be dead. He'd be JFK. But it got his ear. But we'll skip past that. Senile Joe Biden ended up dropping out of the race. But at this point, he had actually refused to endorse Kamala Harris, his vice president, who, by the way, only got in there because of DEI. Hate to say it, but that is the 100% reason why she got in there. DEI. She's a black Indian woman who, I don't fucking know. What has she done before that? You can't name me a single one of her achievements. Fuck out of here. Anyway, But, he refused to endorse her at first. Then he, ended up going on and endorsing Kamala Harris, although it seemed like it was with much reluctance. Donald Trump is still looking for a running mate, but then he finally announces his running mate at the RNC 2024. Donald Trump announces, are you ready? Are you ready? James David Vance is his vice president of the United States. He announces, and actually it gets a lot of backlash. Although JD Vance is a very smart guy, a great guy, those videos resurface from the past where JD Vance is saying, I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. Sorry. But, those start resurfacing. They start coming back, and people are like, why the fuck did you pick a never Trump guy, Donald Trump? Why? Right? But we'll get back to that. Anyway, Donald Trump picks JD Vance. It's met with a lot of criticism because MAGA doesn't understand why you'd bring on a never Trump guy. But they very quickly get used to him and start loving him. JD, give me a hug, man. Give me a hug, man. I love you. Right? JD starts appearing more with Charlie Kirk and figures like that, so they just start to believe that JD Vance is this Republican guy, always has been this Republican guy, always will be this Republican guy. But we can skip past that for a second. JD Vance, of course, is now the running mate for Donald Trump. JD Vance was a never Trump guy and actually did not support Trump publicly until 2022 when he needed a hot seat in Senate. And he was elected after Donald Trump's endorsement. But skip past that. Donald Trump and JD Vance, side by side, right? They seem like they're brothers and shit. JD Vance is one of the youngest vice presidents that we've ever had, as when he was sworn in, he was 40 years old. Very young. Very young. Very young. But, JD was great. Anyway, so we'll go, the Trump and Kamala debate wasn't too hot, but we can skip over to the JD Vance and Tim Walz debate. Tim Walz had a few good points, I guess, but JD Vance basically annihilated him. On this entire campaign trail, I believe a big reason why people voted for Trump is seeing the professionalism and how well spoken the vice president, JD Vance is. JD Vance is a great campaigner. JD Vance is a smart guy. JD Vance knows what he is. And JD Vance went on and spoke, and JD was like, Kamala, why are you switching your policies? It's perfectly fine if you don't believe that stuff anymore, but you have to address why you switched it, and you haven't done that, so how are we supposed to trust you? Based shit from JD, because JD, I know, JD wants to win it, and JD, when he wants something, he damn sure will fight hard to get something. So, JD Vance and Donald Trump are elected president and vice president of the United States. On November 5th, 2024, they're elected. It's this big thing, but and MAGA are whoop 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 Donald Trump, JD Vance. Well, they probably didn't say JD Vance because they were still critical. But of course, it's too late now. They won. It's happened. And yeah, with a little bit from the Democrats saying that he fucked a couch, baseless rumor, showing the Never Trump guy footage, and with a little bit of teasing, they got through and they won. Now, Trump's administration is very and highly controversial, but JD Vance stays silent on a lot of stuff. Actually, the most of the stuff that JD Vance and the scandals that JD Vance commented on were the ICE ones, which were the most logical ones, just stating, very quickly, literally, they didn't detain a child. The child's dad left the kid. And what are they supposed to do? Leave the kid to die in the hot weather? Very logical. But a lot of Donald Trump's scandals, JD Vance didn't take place in, because JD Vance, once again, I mean, he's only vice president, but he didn't really have to. Now, Donald Trump is becoming a chronic failure at this point of his presidency. In the beginning of his presidency, it was okay. But then when we get to the middle part, he's starting to lack and to show something that we didn't want to see. But JD Vance doesn't really have much to do with that, because JD Vance can only do so much. The vice president can only do so much to what the president does and to what the president wants to do. So JD Vance is kind of silent on this one. But Donald Trump was becoming a failure more and more. Actually, bombing Iran in June. Nobody died in that one, but he bombed Iran in June. It was stupid, but I mean, it didn't really go any further other than Iran still threatening us until, we killed their Ayatollah. But, skip past. The only scandal JD was really in was for, arguing with Vladimir Zelensky, saying, "Why haven't you thanked us?" Which actually is a real good question. Why hasn't Ukraine thanked us? Right? I mean, we fund them billions of dollars, and they do what with it? Go on a shopping spree. But that's okay. That is not worth mentioning in this video, at least. So anyway. I digress. We continue. JD Vance does interviews with Charlie Kirk and people in the conservative movement again, building himself up more and more. And just becoming more of a public figure, and I mean, just being kind of, that guy, just being, like, the dude. Like, JD Vance is building himself up, and I don't think he's building himself up for what Donald Trump's doing. He's building himself up for what he's doing. I think that's clear. JD Vance is always thinking, and I'm not meaning to call JD Vance a narcissist, but he's always thinking about himself, not what Donald Trump does. Meaning, whenever Donald Trump does shit, he doesn't always comment on it, and we'll skip past that. So, Donald Trump bombs, and I mean it, bombs Iran alongside Israel. Now, we get a lot of discourse from people that JD Vance knows and JD Vance has collaborated with, and I mean, even Mark Kent dropping out because they and leaving Trump's cabinet because they don't like the terrible idea. Why would we bomb a foreign country and kill their leader when they have only made empty threats towards us and never actually done anything? But that's once again for another video. So, a lot of the people that JD Vance is friends with have discourse about this and are upset about this. Rightfully so. I mean, Donald Trump ran on a peace campaign, and it feels as if that's not what we're going on right now. But that's okay. We can skip past all of that. Right? Because Donald Trump is not the main focus of this video, although Donald Trump's failures is mentioned heavily. Now, see, this honestly might be getting to JD. I mean, we haven't heard JD say anything, but we know, we've heard in several reports, that JD Vance is dissatisfied in the president's term, in the president's presidency, and everything that the president has done so far. We know that he's distasted out of it, that he's upset with it, that he's not happy, and he feels kind of disconnected a little bit. I mean, like a lot of MAGA are feeling, but this is big because it's the vice president of the United States, the running mate of the president, that we have these thoughts about, and that JD now has these thoughts about. Now, No more beating around the bush. Rumors of JD Vance, because JD Vance is a diplomat. Actually, wait a second. I have to say something. When Donald Trump was asked about who he would rather president of the United States, Marco Rubio or JD Vance, he said he was going to stay impartial. But then he was asked what the difference was between them, and he said, one is just a little bit more diplomatic. He's talking about JD fucking Vance. Sorry, he is. JD Vance, there's rumors dropping that JD Vance is disappointed that the U.S. has bombed Iran, thinking that it's stupid, saying that he doesn't, and rumored, but I think that there was a reason to it, but saying, he's upset with it, he doesn't like what's going on, he's disappointed in Trump for doing this, and he was actually vocally telling Trump not to. He was one of the vocal outcriers saying, don't do this, don't fold to Israel, do not bomb Iran. But Trump still did it. Now, let's get to the theories a little bit, right? So, JD Vance at this point, there's a lot of rumors saying that JD Vance is, a lot of things that Trump's doing, JD Vance is stepping away from. JD Vance doesn't like. JD Vance is feeling disappointed about this. He's feeling a certain way about this. But they just stay as rumors at this point. I think, now this is going to get to my theory, I think that it's JD Vance's team setting up these whistleblows and these rumors that he's not happy with what's going on right now. And why do I think it is? Because look, JD Vance wants to run for president. Clearly, the popular thing isn't to be with Trump. I mean, we see how many former Trump supporters, former MAGA, especially myself, stepping back and saying, this is disgusting, I don't like what's going on, we need to stop this, this is gross, it needs to end, right? We see how many people are just disillusioned and just frankly done with what Donald Trump is doing and how Donald Trump is, correct? So, how do we know that JD Vance, this isn't his team that Vance wants, just getting them to stop, getting it to seem as if he's against it, because JD Vance obviously wants to run for president. I mean, this has been said for years. This has been allegedly the plan, that JD wants to run for president. Now, what would pull in more votes than pulling away already? Saying that things that Trump's doing, you don't align yourself with, you don't agree with it, you think it's bad, you were actually vocally telling him not to do it. You were telling him not to do it, correct? You're saying, stop, no need for this, it's done, we need to fucking stop, because there's no way that that we're gonna run as a country keeping this up, Donald Trump, right? Correct. JD Vance is pulling away. And actually, this is a clear sign. This is what a lot of people do. They'll start showing, people like JD Vance, because it's sheer. I mean, a lot of people say Donald Trump is strategic, like the MAGA. Donald Trump is strategic. He is playing fucking chess, and you're playing checkers. You're a dumb fuck. You don't get it yet. Like, yeah, okay, Nancy, go back on your fucking meds. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, Grandma Nancy. But, I mean, look. JD Vance clearly is strategic, obviously more than Donald Trump, although his supporters might tell you otherwise. JD Vance is strategic. JD Vance was a never-Trumper. JD Vance was this. JD Vance had to say this about Donald Trump. JD Vance was so against the MAGA movement. I think that JD Vance doesn't care about the policies. Well, he does care about the policies, but it's to an extent where he doesn't care who his running mate is or how he gets in. He cares about the resume. I believe that JD Vance cares about the resume. He cares about getting the position. JD Vance didn't give two fucks if Donald Trump endorsed him or not. JD Vance didn't care about how he seemed to MAGA. JD Vance wanted the Senate seat, and he fucking got it because Donald Trump endorsed him after he started supporting Donald Trump. That is not something that somebody who's not strategic would do. It's about the resume for JD Vance. It's not about what it actually means. It's about the resume. So JD Vance got into Senate, and then he started glazing Trump a little bit more. He started saying all this stuff about Trump, saying he loved Trump, becoming friends with these political and conservative commentators, so like Charlie Kirk, like Tucker Carlson, like so many others who knew Trump personally, so they could tell Trump, hey, what if you picked him as your running mate? And I think that he might have put that idea in those people so much that he got it through, so that they got it through and said it to Trump to the point where Trump was like, you know what? You're right. What if I do pick JD Vance as my running mate? So he picks JD Vance as his running mate. That's perfect. It's about the resume. It's about getting in people's heads. It's about making people think about it. That's what it's about for JD Vance. Now, I'll get to what I was saying before. JD Vance is pulling away. Strategic people, if they're going to make a move eventually, they want to leave their tracks. They want to show that they were always saying this shit, that they weren't just doing this and that. They were always saying it. Now, JD Vance, he might not have said it directly, but the rumors that were definitely planted out by his team, by the way, the rumors that he is very upset of how Trump is handling bombing Iran and how Trump is, and the Trump administration and the U.S. is handling everything currently, he's already starting to leave his tracks. JD Vance is leaving his tracks so you can go back in the future and look and say, JD Vance did say this shit. JD Vance predicted this shit. That's what he's doing. He's leaving his tracks, and actually JD Vance sees how the MAGA movement is falling apart and how the America First movement is building itself up. That's what JD Vance is always about. JD Vance is already leaving his tracks, so it only means to what could come to the future. When JD Vance runs for president, this is what I'm going to theorize, and actually, this is what I would love JD to do, because as long as JD gets shit done in office, like he has done in Senate, and like he's already doing as a vice president, even if he disagrees, I want him in. So this is what I want JD Vance to do. And this is what I think he's going to do as well, this is my theory. I think when JD Vance runs for president, he's going to start kind of criticizing Trump in a way that Kamala criticized Biden, but a little worse. But not mean, but just saying, hey, I understand that this was a clusterfuck. How can we fix this? And JD Vance is just going to start saying all this shit. And when they try to say that he switched up, these people are going to post this evidence and these rumors from 2026 where it was saying that JD Vance is pulling away after Donald Trump's Iran move and that he's very upset in Donald Trump right now. They're going to pull back to that and they're going to say, look, JD Vance said this in the past, so JD Vance has always been saying this. This isn't a switch up. JD Vance, when he's running for president, he's going to start slowly tearing away at Donald Trump's presidency, saying Trump was a chronic failure compared to what they ran on, compared to what JD wanted, compared to the future that he wanted his kids to have. JD is going to go, and he's going to, well, this is once again still a theory, but JD is going to go and he's just going to say this stuff. And when Marco Rubio runs, Marco Rubio is going to be too afraid to criticize Trump, and it's going to make him look like a MAGA bootlicker that nobody wants to vote in. But when JD's running, JD's going to pull away, he's going to rip away at Trump, he's going to say, look what Trump's doing. And then Trump's going to criticize, but then they're going to be like, look how your own vice president is talking about you, and look how your own ex-supporters are talking about you. I don't think I'm going to listen to you, Trump. I don't think this time I'm going to listen to you, Donnie. And I think JD Vance is going to run a very well campaign, and JD Vance is going to rip away at Trump. He's going to say, listen, we made this mistake here, we made this mistake here, we did this, we did that, we need to fix this. And then when JD runs, he's going to completely ditch all the MAGA policies, and he's going to go with these normal, more, red-pilled policies that are normal, that are more progressive for the Republican Party, that will get the Republican Party through what it needs to get through. I see people like Nick Fuentes criticizing JD Vance, but it's because they just don't understand how strategic and how much of a mastermind JD Vance is. And I think it's clear he's just a secret one that kind of hides. JD is already showing these signs, so when you're going to go back, these historians, they're going to be like, well, actually, here's a TikTok saying JD Vance wanted to pull away, in YouTube video saying JD Vance was done, saying this, saying that. JD doesn't want anything to do with the war, so it doesn't fuck up his campaign. And when he runs, he's going to criticize Donald Trump. He's going to criticize the Trump administration. He's going to say that this isn't what he wanted to do at all. Trump completely went against his vision. Trump didn't check with him before he did these things. Trump didn't do this. Trump didn't do that. But they're actually going to get done. But they promised they were going to get done. But it's going to be Vance. And, I mean, hopefully, like, DeSantis or something, who he picks as a vice president. I would love if he picked Ron DeSantis. But it'd be like, Vance is actually getting done what Trump said he was going to get done. And he's actually doing it, and holy shit, JD Vance is actually promising this shit, and he's leaving room for criticism, unlike a lot of MAGA who are still hooked in to Donald Trump. Yeah, the remaining 4 MAGA fucking bootlickers there will be upset at JD Vance, but the entirety of the United States won't be. Actually, this might pull in more Democrat voters for JD Vance as well. We already see them praising JD Vance as it is because of how JD Vance is, and they believe that JD Vance isn't a full Trump guy. We already see that. So if he starts criticizing Trump in his 2028 presidential campaign, then that could pull in a lot of Democrat voters, and that could be very, very good and very, very good. Very good and, very well for the fucking Vance administration. This could change the course of the Republican Party if Vance does all this. Because Donald Trump was sitting there saying he was going to do all this. He didn't do it. And Donald Trump, none of the other cabinet members criticized him. Marco Rubio sure as hell doesn't have enough of a backbone to criticize Trump. Fucking who else might run? I don't fucking know. Oh, Caroline Leavitt. She won't have enough of a backbone to criticize Trump, but Caroline isn't running, or that's not what's alleged. When Marco's running for president, he's going to just say nothing but good and butterflies about Trump, and it's not going to look good. It's going to look like he's just glazing him, like he's like sucking Trump off, like he doesn't fully have a grasp on criticism. And then we're going to see JD Vance, once again, just a theory, but we could see JD Vance come in and saying this is bad. What Trump did here was bad. Trump failed. I'm going to fix what Trump said I'm going to fix what Trump did, and I'm going to do what he actually said he was going to do, and I'm not going to fold to Israel. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do, because we've already seen how JD feels about Israel, the rumors everywhere. JD is upset that we're not going under the America First agenda. He's really not. But see, we already see this from JD. We already see the pulling away. He's leaving footsteps. He's leaving tracks. So when you go look back, holy fucking shit, JD Vance was saying this. JD Vance was pulling away. JD Vance was in that room done. It wasn't a switch up. This was planned. JD Vance is a mastermind. JD Vance knows what he's doing. And JD Vance, this is my full theory, and I believe that it's 80% accurate at least. He's pulling away already. What does this prove? That he has a bigger plan in the future. That is what people like JD Vance do. That is what smart people like JD Vance do. And on his campaign, he's going to use, listen, I lived a tragic life, but I draw boundaries. I drew boundaries when my mom was doing this. I drew boundaries when my family was doing this. I drew boundaries here. I'm going to draw boundaries with Trump. Because listen, he was a never Trumper. Don't believe me? Go check those interviews. He was a never Trumper until 2022 when he was running for when he was running for Senate. He was a never Trumper until then. And then he was like, I love Trump. I love Trump. And Trump's like, I love you too, Vance. And then he endorsed him. And he got voted in. This is all about the resume for JD. JD's pulling away right now, and he knows what the fuck he's doing, because when JD runs for president, the best chance he has is criticizing Trump and leaving room to not make it seem like he's biased, unlike what Marco Rubio might do when he's running for president. JD Vance is the most diplomatic one, they say, right? That's what Trump said. He didn't say JD Vance by name, but he said one of them's more diplomatic. This might mean that JD Vance might fight off to end the war with Iran that Trump is starting right now. And I mean, we're getting pretty close. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but 2026, 2027, 2028, and likely the candidates are going to start announcing their candidacy around this year or next year. So we're getting pretty close. JD Vance, it's all about resume to this guy. It's not about how it looks on him. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's about being vice president. It's about being president. It's about being Senate. It's about running for governor, whatever the fuck he runs for in the future. But when he runs for president, which we know is going to happen because that's what Trump is setting him up to do, when he runs for president, I think he's going to have this shock factor. He's going to pull this plot twist. We know JD Vance has it down there. JD Vance is already showing that he is not fully there with the campaign. He's not fully there with the presidency. He's not fully there with what Trump does. JD Vance is a mastermind, and JD Vance, when he runs for president, he's going to start critiquing Trump. He's going to start saying, Trump's doing this wrong. Trump did this wrong. We got to fix this. I'm not afraid to say it. We got to fix this. And Marco Rubio, when he's in those debates, Marco's going to say, Trump did this right. Trump did this right. Trump did this. Trump did this. And he's going to be afraid to admit it because he knows that Daddy Trump will be looking on him. And Trump's judgment over the voters' judgment is more important to him. And he wants to pull in those last MAGA that are there. But JD Vance, while he's actually criticizing the President of the United States and letting it all out, he's going to pull in Democratic voters. He's going to pull in Republican voters. He's going to pull in independent voters, libertarian voters. He is going to be that guy. And when it comes to the election, whoever the fuck they put against him, whoever they put against him, because Nick Fuentes might be saying, oh, this, that now, he might think different when he runs. No matter who they put against him, Gavin Newsom, he will be destroyed. Gavin Newsom is showing more Republican values than JD Vance, or more MAGA values than JD Vance is at this point, because JD Vance is pulling away. JD Vance is going to be the only one criticizing, and Gavin Newsom's trying to do the same thing, but it's not working, because criticizing Kamala Harris is just going to upset the train, the Democratic train, more. But the Republican Party is in shambles right now because some of them are with Trump and the other half are so done with Trump. When he starts criticizing Trump, when it gets to the point where he starts, leaving room for this type shit, it's going to start being better. If they put Kamala against him, he's going to destroy Kamala. We've already seen how good of a debater he is, what he digs up against people. It'd be great, and he'd be showing this criticism in the tracks. There's nothing they can dig up on Vance. There's shit he can dig up on other people, but they can't dig it up on Vance. My theory is JD Vance right now is building for his campaign. He's saying that he is done. He's saying what Trump is doing, he's not saying it directly, it's rumors, but, they're going to be true rumors in a few years. Right now, JD Vance is saying, the rumors are saying he's been saying to Trump he needs to not bomb Iran. He needs to back away. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. What Trump's doing isn't okay. And so it's pulling in this. So when he runs for president, it's not going to look a certain way. It's not going to look any certain way, and JD Vance is going to pull in all the voters he fucking wants. Because listen, the Democrats might not like to admit it, but the Democrats are crumbling just as bad as the Republicans are, and the Republicans probably have a better grasp, and probably have a better future plan with JD when they're in shambles. They don't know who they want to pick. They don't know if they want Kamala again. They don't know if they want Gavin Newsom again. They don't know if they want AOC. They don't know if they want, Jasmine Crockett. They don't know who the fuck. Hopefully not Jasmine Crockett. They don't know who the fuck they want. And all we know is JD Vance or Marco Rubio, but we don't want Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is a bootlicker. We see that JD Vance knows what the fuck he's doing and he's leaving these tracks. He might deny it now, but then he'll go and be like, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And then he'll get voted into the presidency, and we'll see how good he is because he's actually making sure. Because once again, also he's not a pedophile, so he doesn't have a big scandal to cover up. But we're gonna see how much he does that Trump said he was gonna do, and we're gonna be like, damn, all we needed to do was vote in Vance. Right? And Vance is going to get voted in for another 4 years because he has this strategic strategy. Vance is a mastermind, and I don't think you guys understand it. You say Trump is a mastermind all the time, but there's no proof behind that. Trump is a dumb fuck. JD Vance was a never Trumper. JD Vance went through this traumatic life, but JD Vance lived with a strategic mamaw. JD Vance had a strategic life. JD Vance found a strategy to get through Yale. JD Vance found a strategy to get to Senate. He found a strategy to make his book become a bestseller. He found a strategy to make the movie based off his book go great. And he found a strategy to become vice president of the United States. So you bet you know damn fucking well that if you think that JD Vance doesn't have a strategy to become president of the United States, then you are way out of your fucking mind. JD Vance is a mastermind. JD Vance, when he runs, he's going to criticize Trump. He's going to do what those other bootlickers like Marco Rubio are too afraid to say and are too afraid to do. And he's going to pull in these Democrat voters. He's going to pull in these Republican voters. He's going to pull in the independents and the libertarians. As much as you guys don't want to admit it, JD Vance is going to do this because JD Vance is about the resume. JD Vance is not about what Donald Trump does. JD Vance is about himself and about how he looks. So JD Vance is going to run. He's going to criticize what Trump does. He's going to say, look, this was bad. This is terrible. But he's not going to do it in such a terrible fashion like we saw Mike Pence try to do. That's what Mike Pence tried to do. What JD Vance is doing so perfectly and so beautifully crafted, and what he has done in the past and what he knows he's doing. JD Vance is going to go in there. He's going to criticize Trump, and he's going to say that we're going to fix this, and we're actually going to do this. He's going to pick whatever running mate he wants. Hopefully it's Ron DeSantis. That'd be the dream team. And we just whoop, 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 whoop. All these people are like, fuck yes, this is what I want. JD Vance pulls in all these voters. The Democrats even vote red. All the states turn red. It's going to be Reagan 2.0. It's going to be one blue state. And maybe even JD Vance becomes the best president that we've ever had because we see how much the Democrats, hype up fucking Barack Obama, and they'll even have some good stuff and some good things to say about George W. Bush when we know he was a terrible fucking president and led us through a terrible, terrible, terrible country and a terrible period of time when he was elected 2 times. But this is what JD Vance can do. JD Vance knows what he's doing, and he's going to pull in all these people, and he could even be considered the next JFK if he fucking wanted to, because this is JD's America. This is what JD Vance wants to do. The blunt truth. I'm going to finish this off. The blunt truth about this is JD Vance is already making his tracks, is already making his footprints. So when you go back in 2 years in 2028 at his campaign and you try saying holy switch up, you go back and you look, oh nope, they've been saying this for years. They've been saying JD has been doing this. They've been saying this and that, and it's confirmed that JD Vance is disappointed and upset on how things are happening right now. This is what's happening. This is what JD is planning. Nobody's planning this but JD Vance and his team and probably Usha. They are planning this out, and this is going to go perfectly, and this is going to go smoothly. JD Vance is a mastermind, whether you like to admit it or not. He masterminded himself through going through Yale with a strategy. He masterminded himself to get a best-selling book through strategy. He masterminded himself through getting a very, very famous, popular movie based off his life. He masterminded himself into getting into Senate because of the endorsement from Donald Trump, because of the strategy that he used there. And then he masterminded himself into becoming vice president of the United States through strategy. If you believe that JD Vance doesn't have a plan and isn't going to mastermind himself into the presidency, then you're cuckoo and out of it. JD Vance is going to do what he's showing right now, but it's gonna be the craziest plot twist and switch we've ever seen in political history. We tried seeing it for Mike Pence, but it didn't work. We're gonna see it for JD Vance, and it's gonna succeed because we've already seen JD succeed. Even if JD doesn't get elected, it's still gonna show that JD Vance had a backbone. Marco Rubio and all of Trump's other cabinet fucking didn't. The blunt truth is JD Vance is already planning out a strategy of how he's going to run for president. And when he does that, he's going to critique Trump. He's going to turn himself. He's going to make his own policies. He's going to build his own movement. It's going to be this big thing. JD supporters everywhere. Democrats are JD. Republicans are JD. Independent JD. Libertarian JD. And it's because JD is building himself up. He's already starting with the tracks. He's going to finish it. JD Vance is a mastermind, and this is how much potential JD Vance has. And if he doesn't capitalize on this, not only will it be a gigantic shock to me, and I'm sure a hell of a lot of other people, it'll just be stupid, because JD already has it all implemented. Of what I truly believe, he might just not be saying it. JD Vance is clearly planning something. We already see it. And I believe he's building himself up for extreme success. Extreme success. And if you don't notice it, and if you deny it, you're simply stupid. JD Vance has a plan. JD Vance knows what he's doing. He's masterminded himself through a lot, and he's going to get it done. Whether anybody likes it or not. The blunt truth is, JD Vance has a plan. JD Vance is going to critique Trump. JD Vance is already building out his tracks. So when people go back and look, they'll see that JD Vance has always been doing this. And it's not a switch up. JD Vance has done this through Senate, through Yale, to getting his book, high sales, to even becoming vice president through it. JD Vance knows what he's doing, and he's planning it out. You can call me delusional, you can call me a conspiracy theorist all you want. It's just in the lines that a lot of people aren't reading through. Thank you for watching. I'm 100% correct. Watch this video in 2 years and tell me I'm wrong. See ya.